Have you guys ever had an idea, something you guys wanted to do, something you guys wanted to build, an art project, but for some reason, something always derailed you? Why do we do that? Why does that happen? I remember thinking one day I will write a novel. One day I will get in shape. One day I'll learn to play the guitar. One day. There's another version of it, which is tomorrow. And tomorrow I will study for that math test. Tomorrow I will X, Y, and Z. So my big one day was one day I will make a feature film. I've wanted to do this for a long time. I've wanted to do this for years. And when I was 23 in the year 2000, I made my first short film. And I shot it on 16mm film. There was no, low-budget HD cameras. There were no DSLR cameras at the time. And so it cost me $30,000 to make this 18-minute film. And I realized that if I were to make a feature film, it would cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly millions. And so I shelved it away on my one day. One day I will make a feature film, and I shelved it away. And so for the next 10 years, I kind of didn't do anything with film. I made a few videos here and there, but I focused more on software, and I focused on music. I started a few bands. I recorded a few albums. And then in 2010, there was this unprecedented camera that came out. It came out for $800, and it's called a Canon T2i. And I saw this footage, and it occurred to me, I kind of thought, I think I might be able to make this movie. And so I bought the camera, and I learned how to use it, and I called a buddy of mine, and I said, hey, do you want to write a script with me? And Mike said, yes, let's do it. And I remember thinking, this is going to be a long road, and what I need to do is I can't get excited at milestones, because if I get excited at milestones, what I might do is I might say, oh, well, that's great, I finished this script. All right, cool, I did a script, feature script. And then I'd probably put it aside, because I've done that before. Where I will get a third of the way there, and I'll rest on my laurels. And sure enough, we started sharing scenes, writing scenes back and forth, and we finished that script. And I was excited, but rather than getting excited and celebrating, I would say to myself, I had a mantra. I would say, "So far, so good," and that's all I did. I mean, that's all I did the whole time. So far, so good. I'm not there yet. I haven't reached the finish line yet. And so I did that over and over and over again. And we got to a point where, we ran into these hurdles. Production came, and now we're like, a 10-person cast and crew, or crew rather. And then we had cast on top of that, and we had all of these hurdles. But, we finished production. We would do Saturdays and Sundays over the course of 2.5 months, these 12-hour days, and everyone just kind of putting in their time, volunteer. And at the end of that, we had it in the can, and it was so far so good. And finally, 15 months after Mike and I started writing this script, we finished Ultrasonic. Ultrasonic went on to win Best of Fest at the DC Independent Film Festival where it premiered. And based on that, it got picked up for a theatrical run. It had an Oscar-qualifying theatrical run. It screened on 10 cities theatrically. It screened on Comcast On Demand. I saw it on Apple Trailers, literally right next to The Avengers, and that was amazing to me. Now you can find it on Netflix, Amazon Instant, and iTunes. And I made this movie with some friends for $22,000, $8,000 less than it cost me to make my 18-minute short film, 15 years ago. The one thing that Ultrasonic taught me is how to accomplish something that's a creative project that has so many moving parts and so many phases. Pre-production and writing is such a different, more intimate phase, and then when you move to production, it's much more of a kind of a party phase. And there's so many different things that have to come together in order for a feature film to be made. And in making Ultrasonic, I started getting these questions. How do you do it? How do you ever sleep? You have a family with 4 kids, and you do software during the day, and you play music. When do you sleep? And really, this is the thing that I realized is how I do it. It doesn't take that much time. So about a year ago, it's been about 3 years since I did Ultrasonic, and I started kind of getting the itch to, it was my 38th birthday, and it's usually on these birthdays when I kind of come face to face with, oh my God, I'm getting older, what am I going to do? I need to finish something, I need to create something, and I had this idea that I want to write another feature script. And this time, so when I did Ultrasonic, I was just kind of doing software, just myself. But my company had grown by now, and now I had, by day I was working with clients, and then I'd spend time with my family, and then at night I had this offshore development team working on the other side of the world, so I'd stay up working with them. And so for me it was like, well, when am I going to get time to write a script? And so I said, all right, well, I'm going to take 15 minutes, and before I go to sleep every night, I'm going to open up that computer, and I'm going to open up Final Draft, and I'm just going to sit there. And if something comes out, something comes out. And if nothing comes out, nothing comes out. But I will sit there for 15 minutes, and that's it. And so the first day, nothing came out. The second day, I think I got like 2 sentences out. And then there's the third day, I wrote for the entire 15 minutes. And there were certain days where I would just write for an hour and a half, and there were other days where I wouldn't, nothing would happen. At the end of 30 days of doing this, I had my first draft written for Null Pointer, which is going to be my second film. So after that, I started doing a lot of research on the intersection of productivity and creativity, and that really is what I've really found is that all of these people. There's a lot of books, by the way, and I'll talk about this book. There's a lot of books, a lot of people talking about this thing, and they're all saying the same thing. There's this underlying thing in all of these people, and so James Altucher calls it the daily practice, which, by the way, if you haven't read this book, it's called Choose Yourself. It's a great book. I highly recommend you guys checking it out. So he calls it the daily practice, and the idea that runs through all of these things is not tackling something huge, but it's tackling something small every day. And the key here is the daily activity. And so for me, it was sitting down for 15 minutes. James Altucher, he says, every day, sit down and write 10 ideas. Doesn't matter what it's about. Doesn't matter. It could be 10 things I want to do for this next weekend. But the act of sitting down and writing and taking that time to write those 10 ideas will generate this movement in creativity. Chuck Close, he's actually one of my favorite fine artist painters. And when I first saw some of his work, that's a painting of him, a self-portrait actually. And he's kind of a hyper-realist painter. He's amazing. This guy says this quote that's kind of harsh, but he says, "Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work." And that's kind of true, and that's kind of fits in line with this whole idea. I had a buddy of mine who was incredibly smart, and this guy got laid off his job, and it had been a couple of years now, and he hadn't found another job. And I asked him, why haven't you found a job? Why haven't you looked for a job? And his answer was an incredible, debilitating fear of everything. And I heard that, and it really struck a chord, because I feel that at some point in all of our lives, we all experience that. We all experience this fear, this I can't, this, but what if I do that? What would happen? And the only way around that, is the act of doing. For example, there's this guy. He's actually a TED speaker, and he's a psychologist. And I looked up how to say his name. It's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And this guy talks about the concept of flow. And flow is this state of being, the state of operating, where you are so in tune with what it is you're doing, whether you're writing or whether you're playing music, that you almost lose track or awareness of your own existence. And I've experienced flow, and I've experienced flow in a few different ways and in a few different places, and with writing, with playing in a band, where we're done with a song and all of a sudden I'm just like, what was that? I mean, it's an amazing feeling, and it's one of the more satisfying reasons for creating. But still there's that debilitating fear part. So I read this book, and this is another one that if you have to read this book. You just have to read it. It's called The War of Art by this guy, Stephen Pressfield. And Stephen Pressfield is the gentleman who wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. And so what I realized was, well, if we can all do it, and if flow exists, and all you have to do is kind of sit down and do this every day, why do we not do it? And he kind of spells it out. What he says is he calls it resistance. And he says we all have this resistance that keeps us from doing this every day, that keeps us from accomplishing our goals. And resistance, a lot of people can think about it or could think about it as procrastination, but it's not just procrastination. Procrastination is a small part of it, but it's not everything. Resistance is deeper than that. Resistance is a little more sinister than that. Resistance is that thing that says, wait, how are you going to sit down for 15 minutes and do your work when you still have to study for that math test tomorrow? Which is true. You have to study for the math test. So which is right? It's those types of things that will stop you from accomplishing the goal. And so what he says is, well, he also says the same thing that Altucher talks about, the same thing that Chuck Close was saying, which is the most important thing with art is to do it every day. And the only way to overcome resistance is to sit down and do a small piece. So if you can't do 15 minutes, you do 10 minutes. If you can't do 10 minutes, you do 5 minutes. If you can't do 20 push-ups every day, you do 10 push-ups. If you can't do 10 push-ups, you do 2 push-ups. But the whole point is to do it every day. And why do you do it every day? Because if you miss one day, then what? What happens? Well, the only thing that happens is it's going to make it easier for you to miss the next day. And it's going to make it easier for you to miss the next day. And that's what we're fighting. It's this thing inside ourselves that basically says, you really worked hard today. You really worked hard today. You don't need to put that 15 minutes in. So I have a challenge for you. I do believe that every single one of you, every single one of us has the ability to be great and do great and create great things. And I have my own challenge for this year. This year I will finish my second feature film. And my challenge to you guys is to start today. Start today. Think about that one thing you really want to do. And I want you to take 15 minutes starting tonight, and I want you to do it. And I want you to take 30 days, and then I want you to find my email address, and I want you to email me, and I want you to tell me how successful you are, because I guarantee you you will be surprised by how much you've accomplished. Thank you.